Hi, it's Karen McMullen here, and welcome to today's presentation on the reflector. I'm here with you from beautiful central Mexico, and you've got me outside here today on the patio, which is so nice. So thank you for this excuse to spend my afternoon sitting out here chatting with you. Sit back, relax, take this in. We're going to be exploring this amazing, unique creature, the reflector. Again, when we're talking about this gem number one, what type of aura do you have? There are 4 aura types. There's the generator aura, which is the most common at 70% of the planet. So 7 out of 10 people you meet are generators or manifesting generators, but have a generator aura. And generators are here to work. They have lots of energy. They have this sacral life force where it's like this life force that just wants to be used for whatever it has energy for. And when they use their energy well, they will regenerate. They'll have even more energy, like a battery that just recharges. Generators are designed to wait for things to come to them and then respond with their life force. The second most common type, the projector, at 20% of the population, they have an absorbing and focusing aura. So they're taking in the energies of their environment and the people around them, and then focused really in on one particular person. And they can be really great guides about how others can use their energy more wisely and more efficiently. 9% of the planet, the manifestor. They have a dense, closed, and repelling aura because they're designed to impact and initiate as they move through life, doing what they will. And for them, the key is to, inform and let people know what they're doing so that they're kind of courteous of others and having their impact be clean and smooth. And then we have the reflector, 1% of the planet. So these are really quite uncommon. I've only met like a handful of reflectors in my time in human design. So they're unique. They're very different. The other 3 types are kind of sun types, whereas a reflector is a moon type. They're in relationship to the moon. So we're going to explore the reflector today. When we're talking about aura type, I just want to remind you that we're talking about what type of energetic presence do you have. And that's that idea that, you don't end here at your skin. You actually have an energetic presence. And human design proposes that there are 4 different types of energetic presence. And your aura has certain properties. So when you learn how to honor the properties of your aura, your life will be more smooth because the properties of your aura determine how you meet life, how you interact with others, how you interact with your environment and with situations. So when you're moving in life according to your aura's strategy, then your life is more harmonious and it's more in accordance with your nature. So everything just goes better. Okay, so the reflector. You'll know you're looking at a reflector's chart because although they have 13 gates activated in their unconscious and 13 gates activated in their conscious self, none of that will line up to create channels. And so they will have all of the 9 centers in their chart undefined, which is relatively rare. And that means, for the reflector, the gates in their chart do have more importance. As far as their aura goes, the reflector has a resistant aura. So it is like, I like this disco ball. It's a mirror. Mirrors are, they're resistant. So they're reflecting back the other or the environment itself. So they have this resistant aura, but it's also sampling. So they're actually taking little samples of their environment, and then, able to reflect it back to itself. The reflector's chart, as I'll go through a little bit more here, changes throughout a lunar cycle. So every 28 days, it's moving through a pattern of change. So the reflector is inconsistent in how they show up in life. One day they might have a bunch of energy, and then the next day they have no energy, and one day they might think this way, and then the next day they think that way. And so because there really isn't much consistency in their chart, their strategy for moving through life is to wait a lunar cycle, is to not make any important decisions without waiting the course of 28 days at least. And in that time, hearing themselves talk to, trusted friends about their decision, and seeing how it sounds to them over time. And over time, clarity will emerge about what's right for them. Okay. This food does not necessarily look very good. The reflector's aura is taking little taste tests of the other, like the other people around them, and also of their environment. And if you understand, how the 9 centers work, basically a center can be defined or undefined. And when it's undefined, it looks like the reflector's chart, which is white. So undefined centers are actually taking in energies around them and amplifying them. Let's say, for example, the sacral center. I'm just going to go back a few slides. Oh, yeah, to this slide here. So when we look at this center here, the sacral center, the reflector is going to be coming into contact with generators throughout the day. And a generator, by definition, has this sacral center defined, meaning in their chart, it would be colored in. And for that generator, they have this reliable, consistent, defined sacral energy, this life force. It's a motor that wants to be used, energy, a vital energy. So a reflector in contact with that generator is going to be taking in that sacral energy and amplifying it. So they might actually have, temporarily more energy because they're amplifying the sacral energy of those around them. So in essence, because all 9 of the reflectors centers are undefined, they are taking in the energies of those around them that have defined centers and amplifying them. So if they're around someone with a defined mind, they might be taking in that person's way of thinking and amplifying it. They might be thinking even more. Or if they're around someone with a defined ego, they might be taking in that person's, sense of worth and even kind of amplifying it for a temporary period of time. But what this slide that I was just on is saying is that this amplified effect of having an open center is less in a reflector than it would be in other types having an open center, because the reflector has a reflecting aura. So they're not taking in as much of the other as another type would. So even though it looks on the surface like the reflector has such an openness because of all of their open centers, undefined centers, they do have more of a resilience because their aura itself is reflecting, and it's just taking samples of the other in the environment. It's not totally taking them in like a generator or projector would. So if you're new to human design, what I just said might not totally make sense to you, but that's okay. I'm just giving you a sense, and whatever you understood about that is what you need to understand at this time. All right. So reflectors are in relationship to the program itself or life itself. So this means that they're here to, they almost have like a cosmic understanding of life itself and the movement of the universe, and, almost a global awareness, or definitely an awareness that extends to beyond themselves, beyond their group of friends, to the community. They're very sensitive, and they can really feel global events and the effect of global events, and they have an awareness of like the whole, or the planet itself. So that's their interest, that's their that's their place in the world, is to be aware of the broader collective and the broader community. And they're really designed to reflect, a community back to itself. And when they're in a healthy community, they will be healthy. And when they're in a sick community, they will be sick, because they're reflecting that community back to itself. So they act almost like a barometer of the health and well-being of a community. I like this picture because it speaks a lot about the reflector. Reflectors are very unique, and they inherently understand the difference between a homogenized, conditioned person or society and a uniquely individuated person or society, someone who is not acting from conditioning. And, here we have this person in color, looking out. They look kind of cosmic, to me, with these sunglasses on. When they're looking out at a homogenized world, at a group or community where people they're not being true to themselves, they're not being authentic, they're simply acting out of their conditioning and speaking from their conditioning. And a reflector can literally taste that. They're sampling that environment. And in this case, they would be disappointed. They wouldn't be very happy in that environment, because they can tell they're not in a true, authentic, unique. They're not surrounded by uniqueness and authenticity and vibrancy. They're surrounded by conditioning and dullness. That is a reflector. And although the reflector doesn't have inner authority like most of the other types, they can gauge their movement in life based on how they feel in an environment. The most important decision a reflector makes in their life is where they live and who they're surrounded by. Their community, the place they live, the restaurant they go to, the office they work in, place is going to determine them being in the right place with the right people. When they're in the right place with the right people, they will have the right experiences, and they will be healthy. And when they're in the wrong place and with the wrong people, they will be unhappy. So as a reflector, making decisions and honoring how you feel in a place. If you don't like a restaurant and you walk in and even if you're in a party of 6 people, it's like, leave. If you don't like your home, do what you need to do to make the changes. If you don't like your job, if you don't feel good in your environment, you do need to move. It's not going to be healthy for you or anyone in your life that you love. You will have an impact on them by being somewhere that you don't feel good in. So human design proposes that we're not here to make decisions about our lives through our mind. And that can be difficult for us to accept because we've been trained growing up, to kind of decide what you want and then go after it. As a reflector, that's not your lot in life. You're, one of the other teachers in human design, he renamed the types. He calls the reflector the drifter. The drifter or the reflector is really, they're not here to live a directed life in the same way that maybe the other types are. They are here to be consistent in, everything, in their direction, in their identity, in their expression, as they move through life and reflect back to the environment itself. And this can be confusing for the reflector, especially in a world where, we're taught that we should know where we're going and what we're doing, and not to have that consistency. It can also be confusing for the people in the reflector's life, because here they have this other person with them who isn't consistent, who, one day is like this and the next day they're like that, and the next day they think this way and the next day they think that way. And, to really honor a reflector is to allow them to be in awe, in surprise, in the delight of this fluctuation of life, and the surprise of witnessing life unfold in new ways that were unexpected. So life with the reflector is a life of surprise and awe and wonder. So, having, when it says no energy to rely on, what that means is that a reflector doesn't have any of the 4 motor centers, have access to consistent source of energy to move in life. Throughout the lunar cycle, the 28 days, they will get access to energy, and also by being in an environment with other people, they will have energy. I have witnessed that many of the reflectors that I've met seem to really enjoy working, and they tend to be quite active, but I have a sense that some of that is just conditioning, that they probably are working more than would be natural to them if they were really truly to honor themselves. So the reflector needs something to rely on for decision making, and what they rely on is the moon. Okay, I admittedly do not totally understand this. I'm not a reflector. I haven't worked that closely with many of them. However, as the moon moves through the mandala of the 64 different gates in the chart, the gates are activated and they change the chart of the reflector. This is the transits, what it's called. So the moon has a particular pattern that it moves through every month, and it's predictable. And this has an impact on the chart of a reflector. So, here's an example of a reflector's chart where, on this day, they're a projector in the morning, and sometime in the evening, their chart, because of the movement of the planets and the transits, they become a reflector again. And then they're a projector. And then, on this day, they're a generator. And, look how they have 3 days in a row of being a generator. So, or 2 days in a row of being a generator. So, on the generator days, the days where they're a generator, they're going to have more energy. They're going to have more energy to do. And the idea with making a decision is that a reflector is going to take their time throughout the month to express themselves. They do need to talk. They need to hear themselves talking and to get a sense of what their viewpoint is. And that viewpoint will change, from this day to the next day. Their perspective is going to change, and they're listening to themselves talk about it until they get a sense overall of, what their truth is and what is right for them. But they need to talk it out, and they need to have people in their life and close friends who are willing to listen to them. And that is something that you can do for a reflector if you're in their life, is to be a listening ear and to really let them talk. They do tend to talk a lot, having an open throat. So listen to them and hear their perspective, and you can reflect it back to them as well. So the reflector is meant to be this kind of ancient being that is connected with the moon and with the rhythms of the moon. And if you've grown up and you're a city person and you don't notice the moon, this will be an adjustment for you. So learning about the moon and getting back in touch with that lunar cycle is part of the process of being a reflector, and learning about the transits and learning about the 64 gates. Study of human design and getting a really thorough reading with an expert who specializes in reflectors is a good idea, really good idea for a reflector to learn how to navigate having this kind of a chart. Now, the trick with having this lunar authority and having your decision making based on this monthly cycle is we live in a really fast-paced, culture where you're expected to make decisions quickly. And so the reflector really needs to step back from that and know that they operate differently and take their time with their decisions. Otherwise, they're just going to spend their life kind of cleaning up all the messes and disappointments of entering into things that aren't really right for them. The reflector, like the projector, will be initiated into things like where they're going to live and who they're going to spend their life with and what job they do. They will be invited or initiated into it. They don't have manifesting capacity, so they're not here to initiate. So things will come to a reflector. So it's very passive. Then they need to wait through the lunar cycle as they talk about their decision with people that they trust. So like the other types, learning to wait and allow things to come to them is important. Yes, this is an important thing. The reflector isn't talking to others to get their opinion about what they think the reflector should do. The reflector is talking to others to hear themselves and to hear what they themselves have to say about the decision. So they're listening to themselves, but they're getting the reflection of others back to them, which is helpful. So it's not about listening to other people about what is right for you. Here we have this woman who has so many different faces, and here she's reflecting back to others themselves. And this is one of their gifts. So reflectors can be amazing coaches and facilitators because they can really take in an environment and know, what's healthy, what's not healthy. They're really here to be almost like an objective, observant, non-attached presence who can really kind of get a sense of like really truly what is going on in a space or even with a person, and then to reflect that back in a completely non-judgmental way. That's something I really have found with reflectors, is they're not judgmental. They really have an acceptance of all that is, although they can be very deeply affected and by the state of their environment in the world, the pain of the world. They can really take that in and have that disappointment about the state of the world. So that would be kind of the shadow side of the reflector, is deep pain and disappointment with the homogenized and unhealthy, painful world that we live in. One of the gifts of the reflector is sensitivity. They are here to be very sensitive to their environment, to life itself, to the cosmos, to the moon, and to others. And that's what gives them the superpower of knowing, you know, what's good for the collective or not. And, you know, ideally they're included as a centerpiece of a community, and they're respected for their views. And there's, you know, in an ideal world, the reflector doesn't really work. It's like supported collectively by everyone, and because they, you know, the community recognizes that they need this person at the hub of the community to kind of reflect itself back to itself and help guide the health of the community. How that fits into your life as a reflector, I'm not sure. We don't, because we're not quite there yet as a society. But the fear of the reflector is that they're going to be included in a community and that they will be invisible. And so, yeah, but again, they will find themselves in the right place with the right people when they wait a lunar cycle, and also when they allow themselves to be initiated into a place and then are sensitive to what places feel good or not. Yeah, their role is simply to live. So as a reflector, you know, the more that you can practice being instead of doing, and allowing yourself to be different, not to make pressured decisions, not to move at the pace that the world is moving, really operating to the tune of your own drum, you know, being the unique, different, varied person that you are, you know, that's your job. I love this image so much. I love it because there's a grace. You know, there's a quiet grace that reflectors have. They're very unobtrusive in their aura. They're a very allowing presence. They do shine in their own way. And, you know, here there's also a cosmic, almost mystical element of this slide that shows that they're not just they're not like a generator who's here to know themselves, or even like a projector who's here to know the other, or like a manifestor who's here to know their impact. And the reflector is here to know the whole. You know, they're here to know life, to know the space that they're in, and to really be able to sense it all and how it wants to evolve. So they're connected to something bigger. Mm-hmm. So if you meet if you're a reflector and you meet another reflector, get their card, get their number, put them in your phone, and stay in touch with them. You have more allies. So in the shadow side, the reflector theme is disappointment. This is when, they are identified with what they sample. So let's say they're taking in the pain of the environment, and they don't just objectively observe it and get a sense of it, but they really take it in and they're feeling that pain and they become identified with that pain. Now that reflector is living in disappointment. Reflectors can also really be disappointed by trying to be normal, by trying to hold down one perspective, one rhythm, a normal way of living, instead of being the fluctuating, transient being that they really are. And enjoying the uniqueness of every moment and then letting it go, ready for the next. Looking out and seeing individuals who are ready to step away from the homogenization of the program. So, reflectors can really be attuned to, okay, this person is waking up. They're coming into their own. They're ready to step out from the conditioned world and to do something remarkable. Reflectors are deeply tuned in to the potential of people and communities. They can tell what's possible. They just inherently know that. And they can also, in the disappointment side, really be disappointed when people aren't meeting that potential. But they're here to see that potential and to recognize, look at this. This is who this person is, and they're standing out, and this is what can be, and to really be in awe of that. So the signature of the reflector is surprise or awe, like wonder. It's like, look at this moment. Look at this, what this is bringing in this moment. And I just love this side. So for the reflector to stay healthy, they do need, first of all, to be around people who are good for them and in a place that they like, that they feel good in. They do need to be around people. So living a lone life is not good for them. And at the same time, it is important for a reflector to have time alone regularly where they can discharge and let go of other energies that they've taken in from others, and to really come into their own aura, which can be difficult for them because they can kind of be a little clingy. They can feel better or more at ease when others are around. But having time alone to come into your just lost you for a second. Okay, I'm gonna go back to finish off here. Yeah, so taking a little bit of time before you're tired to go to bed and just kind of relax, read a little bit, let yourself get tired, because you might not actually get tired especially if you're around a group of people that you're amplifying their sacral energy. You might not have the awareness of when you get actually tired if you're a reflector. So if you can sleep alone, it's a suggestion. Not everyone wants to do that, so that's okay. But yeah, if you're a reflector and you're watching this, I'd love to hear your stories and your experiences. So that I can learn more about you, because you are rare and it's not easy to meet a reflector. And it's even harder to meet a reflector who's really living according to their design. If you're a reflector and you're trying this out, then I'm honored to know you, and thank you for being here. And I look forward to hearing about how this works for you in real life. Mwah.